when a man is angry, does he go hit his boss? Does he go hit his father? Or does he go hit his wife and children if he is an abusive person? Because there's one, a hierarchy that is at play. And second, a sort of sense of entitlement that you have rights over your wife and children, that you can do whatever you want against them. And I think that's something that we really need to work on with men. We can't be screaming for women's rights and equality 24/7 without ensuring that men are part of this conversation and dealing with the issues. For example, domestic violence is such a big problem in Nepal, but why are we not dealing with the root cause? We're seeing domestic stats as obviously a lot of men as the perpetrators. Why are we not dealing with that? Why are we dealing with the survivors? Why are we not dealing with the perpetrators?
Hi, welcome everyone to episode 9 of our podcast series Less or More. Today my guest is Jesselina Rana. She's a human rights lawyer and a social entrepreneur. Actually, there's a lot of stuff that she does and I would love for her to tell us everything. But I got to know her through her blog, Nepali Feminist. And there was an article I had written a few years ago. And she wanted to use that article. We'll talk about that also. But welcome, Jesselina. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sandeep.
Please tell us a little bit about what you do.
So currently I'm dabbling in a couple of things. I'm a human rights lawyer. I work at an organization. I also co-founded and run a small startup called Pad to Go. So we work in the menstrual health sector, and we introduced sanitary napkin vending machines for the first time in Nepal in 2018.
Weren't you in the Forbes Asian 30 under 30?
Yes.
I might have butchered that
No,
term,
that's all right,
but yeah, Forbes 30 under 30 in Asia, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Year. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And so today we're going to be talking about toxic masculinity. So I think हाम्रो यो भन्दा अगाडिको एपिसोड हो कि एपिसोड 7 मा चाहिँ हामीले कुरा गर्दाखेरि we were talking about insecurities. And insecurities को बारेमा कुरा गर्दा I shared a lot of my insecurities out there. And the guest Meera Kakshapati, she said कि it's so nice to see a guy like being vulnerable and like talking about his insecurities. केटाहरू like they have to feel like म macho भनेर देखाउनु पर्छ भन्ने सोच्छन्. So she said that maybe you should do an episode on toxic masculinity भन्यो के. And then I was like, that's nice actually. And then Taco, first name that came up was yours because the article so yaad aayo हैन. Can you tell us a little bit about your Nepali feminist blog and what do you discuss there? Ani how that became how this topic became important to you?
So Nepali feminist चाहिँ मैले 2017 मा सुरु गरेको थिएँ किनभने त्यति बेला म दिल्लीमा ल पढिरहेको थिएँ. अनि social media त्यति बेला एकदमै it had started growing in the sense that social justice movements पनि social media मा आइसकेको थियो. So for example, campaigning गर्न, advocacy गर्नको लागि social media had become the new platform, an easy platform for individuals, organizations सँग आबद्ध नभइकन पनि एकजनाले आफ्नो व्यक्तिगत रूपमा गरिन पाइने advocacy. And त्यति बेला चाहिँ अब law schoolमा there's so many societies and I was part of this society called the Gender Circle. So त्यसमा चाहिँ धेरै feminist literature discuss गर्ने, LGBTQ issues discuss गर्ने. अनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ नि यसै कुरा गर्दा चाहिँ नि a lot of social media pages इन्डियामै फेमिनिजममा फोकस गरेको पाइयो. र त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ नि अब हाम्रो generation wants short snippets of information easily available. So त्यो चाहिँ नि was really interesting for me personally. अनि अब when you're away from home, you're trying to look for something that connects you to home, something that you can understand the history of, something I could understand the feminist movement of, because I couldn't find something which was catering to हाम्रो generation, especially through platforms like Instagram or अहिले TikTok आएको छ हैन. And I was like अब छैन भने अब के गर्ने त, फेमिनिजम नेपाली एउटा फेमिनिजम पेज छैन भने let's start it भनेर. So I just like started it. It started out as a very simple advocacy page sharing information about the laws and everything. I think it grew a lot once I came back. म नेपाल फर्केपछि चाहिँ नि आफ्नो प्र्याक्टिस यहाँ सुरु गरेपछि चाहिँ नि नेपालको जुन हिस्ट्री छ, लिटरेचर छ अन फेमिनिजम, त्यो चाहिँ नि I started sharing more about the laws. and a lot of men also started following it. अनि every people would come question about toxic masculinity भनेको के हो, फेमिनिजम मेनको लागि हो कि होइन, यो त खालि महिलाको लागि मात्रै एउटा मुभमेन्ट हो कि भन्ने कुराहरू पनि आयो. अनि we do a lot of debates on Nepali feminist, and we saw that toxic masculinity जस्तो debateमा both men and women were very interested to engage in this concept, because this is something which definitely harms men, but in the overall gender hierarchy of structures and the overall movement of equality, it does harm people beyond men also. So a lot of information came about that, and there were debates happening about that, and few posts are still up on the Nepali feminist regarding this.
I loved what you said about toxic masculinity hurts men also. I'd love to come back to that in a little bit. Nepali feminist ma, are there a lot of men following and like questioning यस्तो पनि हुन्छ त, यस्तो like passing negative comments हरू पनि आउँछन् कि?
So negative comments आउने भनेको चाहिँ नि कुनै पोस्ट अलिकति भाइरल भयो भने त्यसमा चाहिँ नि आउँछ, तर जुन रेगुलर फलोवर्सहरू छ, नेगेटिभ कमेन्ट्स भन्दा पनि दे आर भेरी ओपन टु इङ्गेजिङ इन डिस्कसन. एन्ड आई थिङ्क द्याट्स द सर्ट अफ कम्युनिटी द्याट इट हेज इभल्भड इन्टु. लाइक देयर आर पिपल, फर इक्जाम्पल देयर आर मेन हु आर pro-lifers abortion ko kurama, but they are willing to engage in constructive debate with women who are pro-choice, with men who are pro-choice, rather than it being a hostile environment bhanda pani, like trying to put other people down with their perspectives. I think it's become also because there's someone else handling the debate or the information that is flowing. So there's some sort of regulation that happens from my part also. But negative comments bhanda pani inquisitiveness, if that is a word, inquisitiveness.
Let's make it a word. Yeah,
I think that is very prominent, and that's a very promising quality that a lot of people do have.
यो toxic masculinity को बारेमा त हामीले कुरा गर्न थाल्यौं, तर we should probably rewind a little bit and then like masculinity, being a man, all that stuff को बारेमा कुरा गरौँ है त. Let's start with emotions, because I'm more psychology पढेको हैन. Like very early on while studying psychology, we studied that there are 7 universal emotions. One is anger, sorrow, happiness, surprise, blah blah blah. So it's okay, हैन. And men predominantly display only 2 of the 7, right? Okay? Anger and pride. Out of happiness, surprise, sadness, all this stuff, right? Men predominantly display pride and anger. Women predominantly display sorrow and love. I think those are the 2. Okay, but women, like say, most of the emotions are acceptable and like acceptable when women express those emotions. But men, like say, when they express sorrow, it's not accepted. They feel like it's not accepted by others around them. And I found that very surprising. One reason being, I could so relate to it also. Okay, I'm like, when you feel sad, don't express that you're sad. Express anger. Not like verbally but like we were kind of conditioned to do that. Okay? So you might also notice like when some boys, male friends of yours, brothers, whoever, when they feel sad, they try to like control their tears, like that toki rakhne, and like so that they don't burst into tears, and पछि गएर चाहिँ रिस देखाउने के. The exactly opposite for girls. When they're angry, generally they burst into tears, because girls are like say they're taught, conditioned by those around them not to express anger, but it's okay to express that you're sad. And this whole thing of like this definition of being a man, and Dove ko and kosko ad haru आउँछ नि हैन, त्यो सबै मैले देखाएको थिइनँ कि पहिला चाहिँ हैन. This यो पढ्दाखेरि चाहिँ this whole thing of being a man and what is it to be a man भन्ने चाहिँ मलाई कस्तो स्ट्राइक भयो कि त्यहाँ चाहिँ like this whole definition of being a man, what the hell does it mean to be a man, one भन्ने थियो. तर त्यहाँ देखेपछि चाहिँ shit man, it's such a narrow definition. Like you're only allowed to do certain things, हैन. And like मलाई कस्तो shocking लाग्यो कि त्यो चाहिँ, being a man? And like, can we talk about this emotions ko
Yeah,
kura
sure.
bhanera?
In fact, I find it very interesting because you've studied psychology, I know,
Yeah.
and you know that anger is also one of the emotions. Bhanera. हामीले general men and masculinities like हेर्दा चाहिँ नि we oftentimes hear things like for example मर्दको दर्द नै होता भन्ने कुराहरू from the something that people have of our generation have grown up hearing,
Yeah.
or the generation above that. Number one. Second, हामीले जुन men can't be emotional भनेर भन्छौँ नि होइन, you hear this, men shouldn't be emotional. A lot of times we forget that anger is also an emotion. Anger has been like you said, conditioned for not just men, even for women to believe that anger is an emotion that men can sort of show. It's a masculine emotion. And toxic masculinity, for example, like you mentioned, एउटा पुरुषलाई आफूले they don't want to cry, रिसाएको बेला they don't want to cry. तर अर्को कुरा हामीले के पनि हेर्नुपर्छ, त्यति बेला रोयो भने उसलाई चाहिँ नि अर्को जुन समाज छ कसरी हेर्छ, how will the society look at him? Will their partner be accepting of a fact of your male partner crying while something is going on, So I think a lot of it goes, number one, definitely how the media how we have been grown up, how we have been raised with the media. Second is definitely, it's not just the men who've been conditioned to believe, it's also the society, including women who have been conditioned to believe that your male partner should not be crying. If they are crying, there's probably something wrong भन्ने कुराहरू. So I think it's very interesting how anger has been sort of marketed, marketed as a masculine character, something if you do show, you become more of a man. And it's very interesting because there was this Dr. Michael Bhannele, 2015 he's a professor at Sunnybrook University, if I'm not mistaken. And he is a teacher of masculinity, and he did a class and he did this experiment. He asked his students, what is a good man? So the students said things like, takes care of the family, puts other people's needs in front before his. Then he asked them, what is a real man? And they had completely different answers. They had answers like, he is macho, has muscles, takes risks.
A good man
versus a real man. And that is very interesting because
this brings about the question: Are good men not
real men? And are real men not good men? So I think that was such an interesting way that he looked at the studies of masculinity, because not just, and when he was interviewing, it was not just men who were present, there were women also who had very similar answers about how real men र good men को फरक चाहिँ नि, जुन real man, जुन the are you a real man भनेर कसैले सोध्यो भने, like are you displaying enough testosterone and all the qualities that testosterone as a hormone can produce in you भन्ने कुराहरू. And it was very interesting to see that no one really interlinked the good man and the real man, and how society perceives these two characteristics as being existing without any correlation to each other.
I've heard this in like हाम्रै नेपाली सोसाइटीमा पनि लाइक कहिले काहीँ अलिकति इमोसनल भएको जस्तो भयो भने कस्तो केटी जस्तो भनिदिने, अगेन लाइक इमोसनल लाइक अलिकति त्यो लाइक फर इक्जाम्पल आइज वेल अप भयो भने कस्तो केटी जस्तो भनिदिने है. अनि त्यस्तो कुराहरू पनि मैले सुनेको छु कि जस्ट लाइक वकिङ अराउन्ड र लाइक फ्यामिली ग्यादरिङ्स यताउतामा इट्स सच अ, एन्ड द्याट्स मेरो लाइक एक्चुली वान अफ द लास्ट क्वेसन्स थियो कि वेन डज दिस बिकम टक्सिक भनेर. लाइक इट बिकम्स टक्सिक फ्रम द भेरी बिगिनिङ नै कि यस्तो कुराहरू भन्न थाल्दाखेरि नै. आई लभ वाट यु सेड अब एङ्गर हेज बिन मार्केटेड एज समथिङ फर मेन द्याट मेन डु भनेर नि होइन, एन्ड इट बिकम्स टक्सिक त्यतिकै नै कि, बिकज लाइक वी टिच द यङ्गर जेनेरेसन टु बी लाइक स्ट्रङ, दाइ जस्तो बन्नु मन छ, केटा जस्तो लाइक मर्द बन्न आयो त यो गर्नुपर्छ भनेर कि, अनि रिस देखाउनु पर्छ, लाइक द पन्चिङ द वल एन्ड स्टफ लाइक द्याट. वेन युआर एङ्ग्री दाँत टोकेर पन्चिङ अ वल के, लाइक एज इफ आँसु चुयो भने चाहिँ के लाइक नराम्रो हुने जस्तै कि होइन, बट भित्तामा पन्च गरेर आफूलाई हर्ट गर्न चाहिँ. म सेन्ट पल्समा पढ्थेँ कि होइन, अल बोइज स्कुल, एज अ कम्पिटिसन, लाइक अनस्पोकन कम्पिटिसन कि हुज मोर म्यानली भन्ने खालको होइन, एन्ड लाइक गाइज पन्चिङ वल्स एन्ड यहाँ रगतहरू निस्केको देखायो भने चाहिँ ड्याम द्याट्स अ डुड राइट देयर भन्ने खालको कुरा कि. that it becomes toxic from the very beginning नै के
That's very interesting because I also studied in a boarding school, but an all-girls school. And this is something that I also noticed. For example, हामी सानो हुँदा जुन tomboy हुन्छ नि, and this is something I myself was a tomboy भनौँ न, by the definition when I was younger. And I had a friend, a guy friend, who was a little effeminate. And I remember like ekdamai I remember him and me having this conversation. We were probably in 2nd or 3rd grade, you know. And he told me that, you know, he gets bullied a lot because of his effeminate qualities vanera. And त्यति बेला I thought, okay, timi effeminate so I also have certain tomboy considered about traditionally more masculine amongst the kids भन्ने features. Why have I not sort of faced such bullying? Why am I more accepted amongst the boys भन्ने कुरा के? And that's something where I realized that is also a part of toxic masculinity, because one of the traits of toxic masculinity is overhyping masculine characters and demeaning feminine characters.
Yes.
Irrespective of which gender is showing that. You know? And that's why we see effeminate boys are bullied, for example, even in movies, or, you know, called gay, you know, or called very demeaning and dehumanizing words, whereas the tomboy archetype that does exist, ekdamai, you know, girls, the go-getter girl is the tomboy girl, not the girly girl who sits in class and, you know, does art and craft. It's the go-getter girl bhanne. So even in that context, it's the masculine characters which are being valued over the feminine characters.
And like, you know, going off of what you just said, I think it's because of that, जुन यो 10-12 वर्षको केटाहरू के अरे जुङ्गा दाडी नआएको छ भने होइन, सेभ गर्न खोज्छन् नि, सो द्याट सेभ गरेपछि चाहिँ लाइक अझै आउँछ. एन्ड लाइक त्यो बिकज समटाइम्स वेन युआर लाइक 14-15 त्यो एजमा पुगिसक्दाखेरि पनि फेसियल हेयर प्याची आएन भने पनि यु टेन टु गेट बुलिड के, रौँ छैन भनेर होइन, फेसियल हेयर छैन भनेर, एन्ड यु डोन्ट वान्ट टु एक्सपिरियन्स द्याट नि. सो त्यही भएर पहिलेदेखि सेभ गरिराख्ने कि the fear of getting bullied for not having facial hair or like, you know, hair in your arms and stuff like that. Okay? Like I remember म धेरै young हुँदा हैन सेभ गरिसकेको थिएँ कि त्यो आओस् भनेर. That's quite interesting. So starting with emotions, and I think we've already touched on this a little bit. मलाई एउटा इन्सिडेन्ट सेयर गर्नु मन थियो कि how I first got to know about you. मैले एउटा आर्टिकल लेखेको थिएँ, can't even remember the name of the article now, होइन. Grooming for men or something. They wrote the title like as if it was a lesson कसरी groom गर्ने भनेर हैन. So like my brother, he was in India at that time, and whenever he comes here, like last day or something, say like bonding day भनेर, just the two of us, like, you know, want to do something अरु कोहीसँग नाइ के, and सगुनमा के गरौँ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ ल let's go get a facial भनेर, two brothers bonding भनेर. And त्यसपछि I called this salon and I said, can I make an appointment for 2 people for facial भने के, and 2 girls भन्यो. I no, guys भन्यो. 1 girl 1 guy भन्यो. Said no, 2 guys भनेको ए दुईटा केटालाई भनेर भन्यो के. And I was like, yeah, I mean, why is it that so surprising? I still get a facial every 6 weeks. My routine नै छ के. And when I get a facial, I'm like, मुख चलाइरहेको छ, आइब्रोज पनि सेभ गरिदिनु, यताउता म लाइक फुल अल आउट जान्छु कि होइन. And like why, and my brother and I both like to get our eyebrows plucked and stuff like that के. And like why is that so surprising, 2 guys लाई भनेर. And then I started writing that article के. अनि म त्यही सलोनको बाहिर कुरिरहेको थिएँ. मैले I don't know if I wrote that in that article, तर कुरिरहेको थिएँ अनि I was waiting for my turn, I was walking by, अनि त्यहाँ पोइन्ट गरेर ए यहाँ त केटाहरू पनि जाँदो रहेछन् है भनेर a group of girls said that के. अनि it just struck me like it's so surprising that guys like take care of themselves. And why does it have to be so surprising ke? Like is it manly to not care? Is it feminine to care? Like our facials of I don't have answers to that, but it's so shocking and weird to me.
I think the self-care and the beauty industry really market themselves for women bhanera हैन, एउटा कुरा त त्यो भयो. And अर्को is definitely I think like you said, त्यो जुन ruggedness that is expected of a real man हैन, त्यो चाहिँ नि अब कसरी, how does the beauty industry cater to that भन्ने कुरा के. Like even अहिले कसैले कुनै म्यानले मेकअप लायो भने हैन, मेकअप इज सो जेन्डरलेस, तर मेकअप लायो भने they question their sexuality, irrespective of gender expression and sexuality being so different.
मैले त्यो मेकअपको कुरा लाइक लास्ट एपिसोड प्रिभियस 2 एपिसोड्समा आई मेन्सन कि आई युज कन्सिलर कि म युकेमा हुँदा आई गट अ लट अफ पिम्पल्स एन्ड अल एन्ड माई लाइक आई गट भेरी इन्सिक्योर अफ द्याट अनि मैले कन्सिलर चलाएको थिएँ भनेर कि आई डिन्ट इभन नो हाउ टु युज कन्सिलर चाहिँ पुरै सर्टभरि कहाँ कहाँ दाग लाग्थ्यो कि आई फाउन्ड इट क्वाइट फनी एन्ड गोइङ अफ अफ द्याट वाट यु सेड अबाउट मिडिया नि आई जस्ट रिमेम्बर्ड यो वाट यु कल द्याट त्यो फेस मास्क अनि सबै कुराहरूमा होइन यो एनी ब्युटी प्रडक्ट्स मोइस्चराइजरहरूमा पनि मोइस्चराइजर त केटाकेटी दुवैले चलाउनु पर्छ नि होइन इट्स इसेन्सियल लाइक स्किन केयर प्रडक्ट इट्स नट अ मेकअप थिङ इट्स अ स्किन केयर प्रडक्ट men, women, everyone needs to take care of their skin. You barely see men in those ads, right?
Yeah.
Face mask, I use face masks a lot. Okay, I've never seen a man in any face mask ad. Moisturizer, sunscreen ma pani dekha chaina.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god, I had never thought of this until you just said it. That's
interesting.
Sad,
yeah, it's interesting how that plays not just to the consumers, but that plays to our mindset of who should be using what product whenever. I mean, profitably also thinking if they expand the market to men, profit would increase, right? Technically.
Yeah. Just fair and handsome matra चाहिँ केटाहरूलाई but nothing else for men भने जस्तै कि that's very interesting actually. I will actually go home and look for skincare products that have actually like used men in their ads. Okay? I'd be shocked to find like 5 barely. My अर्को एउटा इन्सिडेन्ट सेयर गर्नु मन थियो कि होइन एन्ड लाइक I'd love for you to share your view on this also. Metrosexual भन्ने term के I don't know if many people know about this term. Like you rightly said, it's not a term you find in like broad literature of this topic of masculinity, femininity हरूकोमा होइन metrosexual भनेको चाहिँ just in layman's terms चाहिँ someone who takes particular care, a man who takes particular care of himself, that's it in simple terms भनेर बुझाउने हो भने होइन एउटा इन्सिडेन्ट भएको थियो म युएसमा पढ्दाखेरि like I used to wear like button down shirts to classes but like even if I didn't have classes Saturday Sunday ma pani I used to like wearing button down shirts and sweaters and polish my shoes and stuff like that अनि मलाई एकजना केटाले सोध्यो कि सन्दीप are you gay भनेर सोध्यो I said no why भनेर सोधेँ कि अनि त्यसपछि you take such good care of yourself I thought you might be gay भन्यो कि I said no I just like to take
do it.
care of myself. Like I have a strict routine. 6 weeks I get haircut. Of Nepal, I 6 weeks I get like I'm quite particular about all that. Okay? And then he said, then you must be metrosexual. Okay? This is the first time I ever heard that term. I said, what does that even mean? You like to take care of yourself. Okay? And I actually said this because you like to go to class in your pajamas, and I like to wake up like half an hour before, make sure I'm like looking presentable. Means you are a guy, a typical guy, and I am an outlier, a metrosexual guy. Like bhanera bhane ki I found that so surprising, and it goes along with what you said agi nai ki taking care of yourself is a feminine thing. Like as if guys aren't allowed to do that. And it goes along so well with what you said in the very beginning. Toxic masculinity hurts men also. And like I think like this is where I see that. Like would you like to...
Definitely. I think, for example, even in your conversation with this person, I'm just thinking like it could also have been a situation that he himself has told himself that कति चाहिँ to be a man उसले कस्तो खालको लुगा लाउनु पर्छ कसरी ड्रेस अप गर्नु पर्छ maybe I don't know but maybe there could also have been a situation where he was sort of taking some sort of validation from you उसलाई लगाउनु पर्यो तर ऊ गे होइन his sexuality and his expression of clothes bata चाहिँ नि they're not the same हैन. And I think it all also goes down to how we were raised as children also, you know, how in fact this is very interesting because a lot of the times men look up to like how women look up to, or any child looks up to a figure, father figure, mother figure, or any sort of role model. A lot of it depends on how the qualities that they possess, you sort of internalize it, you know. And in fact, the term toxic masculinity, pani, just going a little out of topic, I was doing a bit of research, and it's not something that came through the feminist movement, right? So, in fact, it came from this man called Shepherd Bliss, panne manche, and he used it to characterize his father, who was in the military, an extreme authoritarian man at home too. And he uses the word toxic masculinity. Toxic, why does he use the term toxic? भन्नाले चाहिँ उसले के ऊ दिया रहेछ भने, meaning दिया रहेछ भने, just like any illness, toxic masculinity also can have an antidote. It's like a sickness भनेर चाहिँ, and he characterized it, you know, like how toxins in your body lead to a sickness. It's how toxic masculinity can lead to sickness, and this was in the 1980s. So I'm just sort of trying to understand how, like, you know, when that person came up to you and talked to you about being metrosexual, I feel like you said, metrosexual as a word about academics and academia मा त्यति use हुँदैन हैन. It's a very urban dictionary type word. तर यसो के अरे metrosexual हेर्दा पनि, it's something where people expect a man to not be gay, but if it's like a spectrum, if gay men are supposed to take 100% care of themselves and straight men are supposed to take 0% care of themselves, metrosexuals are, according to a layperson term, are people who take 50% care of themselves. And that's very interesting because his first thought being that, are you gay? You know, not because you were, you know, having something with another man, but because you dress well. And that is another stereotype of gay men, you know, like all gay men dress well, or gay men are into fashion, or all gay men take care of themselves.
Oddly enough, the guy who actually asked me if I was metrosexual is gay. And I found it even more shocking that a gay person adhered so much to the stereotype that a guy who takes care of himself, you know, makes it a point to like look tip top type, has to be gay. I found that very shocking that, you know, he would adhere to that stereotype. It didn't sit well with me, actually.
I think a lot of the times we think because people belong to certain communities or certain, for example, feminism ke kura garda haina, a lot of the times we think that just because feminism is a movement which focuses on the rights of women, all women must be feminists and identifying as feminists, and all women must have, you know, must be questioning sexist values that they sort of learned or, you know, grew up with. But that's the thing, like patriarchy helps certain people and it harms certain people, just like toxic masculinity, right? Patriarchy, caste, class, gender, all of these go hand in hand with one another. So, for example, intersectional feminism ma herda pani, for example, this gay man, he might have, you know, had his challenges with his expression and challenges of coming out, but he might have still grown up in an environment of seeing men act in a certain way, seeing men, you know, straight men act in a certain way, for him to sort of believe that gay men are supposed to act like this and straight men are supposed to act like this, as if it's a very separated issue.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Like going not off of this, but like a little out of the way, something I wanted to spend most of our time talking today was this topic of men being entitled. Do you think we are raising this generation of men to be very entitled, or like, you know, the previous generation also are teaching the new generation of men to be entitled and like, you know, I deserve this, I should have this भन्ने कुराहरू?
What I personally think is, I don't think there's a new के भन्छ, there's a new push that is sort of teaching men to be more entitled than they were before. A lot of the focus, and why I say that is that in the past 2 decades, we've seen a lot of focus from the feminist movement itself, and I consider this as a failure of the feminist movement also. A lot of focus of the feminist movement was to push women out of the house, was to push women into being independent, self-reliant, but there was no push for men to be adjustable to women, this new type of woman who was coming up as a self-reliant woman. And I think what is now being hurt is, I won't say hurt exactly, but what is happening is that because there was no side parallel efforts by the feminist movement to ensure that men are also understanding that there needs to be a give and take with this, with the concept of gender equality. There are things like, for example, reservation, where you are essentially sort of giving up seats to ensure that people from different castes and classes come to the same level as you are. And that is what I see as a challenge and a failure of the feminist movement from the past, and not just of the feminist movement, but women's rights movement all across the globe, whether they identify as a feminist movement or not. किनभने नेपालमा पनि धेरैजनाले महिला अधिकार कर्मीहरूले आफूलाई फेमिनिस्ट भनेर भन्दा, they don't identify a lot of the times, but they are still working for women's rights. But at that same time, men engagement was such a new topic. Men engagement as a topic within the development sector has recently become a thing. It was either men engagement with the gender equality aspect was not seen together. So like you said, I don't think we are raising this generation of men to be more entitled, but we are not allowing them space to adjust to a new generation of women who are taking charge. And that is sort of hurting them. And, there is no balance in the way that they are seeing this new generation of women. And I think it's sort of like, I won't say feeding their entitlement, but it's sort of making them feel insecure about their position in society.
That is very, very interesting. While you were saying that, it reminded me of this feminist movement in America. World War II World War II हुने बेलामा men were drafted. All young men were drafted to fight in the war. And then what happened in America, labor force ta ghatyo. So what happened, women from the home were invited to fill in that gap. All fine and dandy. But then once the war was over, all the men came back. They want their jobs back.
Exactly.
So they come back to,
do the job considered manly.
And then now the women, they're like, we were just sitting there. Now suddenly we've got nothing to do. Ani tyo hudakiri, like once that happened, that really triggered this feminist movement. It's very similar to what you just said right now. And then women after that were like, you can't just like tell us to bye-bye. Thank you for doing that for like a few years while we were fighting, but now go back home. We also want to work. Pushback aayo ki tyaबाट चाहिँ. And men were shocked. Men had no clue what to do. And at that time, men expressed their entitlement almost. Right? Like, this is our stuff, not your place. And I guess we're a few years late, but we're seeing that same thing happen. No war, but we're seeing that same thing happen. And you're very right in saying that like men need to be taught to accept and learn that this is a new generation we are living in, where it's not just you that has to be the bread earner, not just you that has to provide and stuff like that. And I hadn't thought of that before, but I agree with you. It's a failure of the feminist movement, and probably why lots of people, not just women, men also hate using the word feminist in like association with their identity. Because they think feminism bhaneko चाहिँ womenलाई अगाडि, women centric matra ho. But when you look at feminism as men and women दुवैको तर्फबाट then I think people understand it's about equality भनेर के.
Exactly.
But feminism, when you only look at it from the female's perspective, female-लाई अगाडि बढाउने, female यस्तो, female उस्तो भनेर. अनि फेमिनिजमको अर्को एउटा प्रब्लम चाहिँ म के देख्छु भने, I mean, I consider myself a feminist होइन, but I still am a big critique of feminism के. One reason being, I think feminism ले चाहिँ women-लाई victims बनाएर मात्र कुरा गर्छ के. And you being the person who has started Nepali Feminist, I'd love to hear from you about this. I feel like feminism le women are like victims matra banaउँछ. Women, for example, women don't have enough opportunity. Women aren't. Women and negative terminology use गरेर के उनीहरूलाई victim बनाउँछ के. But women have the choice to do this. Women should. The positive term associate गरेर उनीहरू, what happens when you use that positive term is, I think, you give them the power. Okay. But when you use that negative terminology, can't, shouldn't, don't have, all these things use गरेपछि चाहिँ they become victims. Like
yeah, that's very interesting because हामीले, for example, when we look at the white feminist movement, and this is the white feminist movement is something that is critiqued by a lot of people of color, including intersectional activists. When white people sort of come to Nepal, let's say, or come to a developing country, they envision women, they envision यहाँको महिलाहरूको चाहिँ नि पावरै छैन, हामीले इम्पावर गर्नु पर्यो भन्ने कुरा हैन. इम्पावर भनेको do you mean that power नभएर तिमीले पावर दिइरहेको हो कि पावर भइसकेको बेला त्यसलाई, like you said, solidify गरेर opportunities-हरु दिनु परेर भनेर हैन. So definitely I think because a lot of the times feminist movements or social justice movements are led by people with privilege, when feminism as a concept began, not in America, not as a concept, American feminism, it was the white feminism which was taking lead. It was later on, and they left behind a lot of women of color, they left behind black women. And Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality, said that your feminism, if it's not intersectional, if it's not catering to different people who have different needs, it's not going to be intersectional, and it's not a feminism that should be espoused for by people. So similar, I think what happens is that not just a feminist movement, for example, हामी अस्ति म एकजनासँग कुरा गरिरहेको थिएँ हैन, हामी यहाँ सहरमा बसेर गाउँघरको मान्छेहरुसँग यस्तो हुन्न, गाउँघरको मान्छेलाई हामीले we need to help them, as if they don't have autonomy, as if गाउँघरको मान्छेहरुको autonomy हुन्न, उहाँहरुले आफै चुज गर्न सक्नुहुन्न जस्तो कुरा के. So definitely I think it's not just feminism but any social justice movement which sort of creates this hierarchy of people within it. And it is definitely a challenge even within the feminist movement, white and non-white people ko feminism ma, within the feminist movement of urban and rural issues harma. So definitely, like you said, I do agree, it is definitely a challenge, and I think slowly people are learning, looking at it from negative connotations, like you said, definitely puts your mindset into people. तिमीसँग resources छैन, you'll probably तिमीसँग resources छैन तर म दिन्छु. No one's asking you to give them. You're supposed to sort of, ensure that they are capable.
Yeah. And they probably do have those resources, certain resources. Help them utilize that rather than saying, almost making them feel so weak.
Like
and
charity.
then you're there, yeah.
Like
charity. Yeah. Like feminism is not charity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we moved a little bit. We were talking about entitlement. मलाई entitlement को बारेमा चाहिँ one big reason I wanted to talk about entitlement is because we're seeing a lot of cases come up, rape cases come up, sexual assault and rape cases come up, not come up but surface right now. They have certainly existed in the same ratio but right now it's surfacing, and it's a good thing it's surfacing because people are now, they can't turn a blind eye to it now. And this conversation about rape is लाइक लाउड भइरहेको छ. म चाहिँ यो कन्भर्सेसनमा आई डोन्ट सपोर्ट अ फ्यु थिङ्स जस्तो लाइक डेथ पेनल्टी एन्ड अल दिस स्टफ भन्छ. I completely don't support that. I think there are so many other things we can do. That's a conversation for another day and another podcast, होइन. तर मलाई चाहिँ अहिले त्यसको बारेमा कुरा किन गर्न मन लागेको भने I think this male entitlement and sexual assault and rape like really go together के होइन. एन्ड आई डोन्ट थिङ्क यो डिट्याच गर्न मिल्दैन कि अब अरू सोसाइटिजको छोडौँ, नेपाली सोसाइटीमा त यसलाई डिट्याच गर्नै मिल्दैन. एन्ड नो वान इज अबाउट दिस. यो रेपको बारेमा, रेप केसेसहरूको बारेमा कुरा भइरहेछ नि मिडियामा, नो वान इज टकिङ अबाउट दिस जस्तो लाग्छ कि यो मेल एन्टाइटलमेन्टको कुरा चाहिँ. मलाई यसको बारेमा कुरा गर्नु मन लागेको. म अलिक धेरै बोल्छु, सो I'll ask you to talk about this.
Sure.
First, and then
when we look at toxic masculinity, and I'm tying this all up with the concept of toxic masculinity because हामीले toxic masculinity हेर्दा त्यसको 3 pillars भनेर हामीले हेर्न सक्छौँ है. One is anti-femininity, something that we talked about, anti-feminine qualities, होइन. The second is violence, the power to be violent or violence of power, we're going to talk about it in terms of like rape and consent. And the third one being machoism, the real man ko kura ke. So I think we've covered the 2 pillars. I think we're coming to the 3rd pillar, and it's very interesting because that is one of the main the main academics ma herda, academic literature ma herda, and it's unfortunate that all of this is so restricted to the academic discourse, okay? Also because academics ko apne disadvantages in terms of language and everything, so and it hasn't come to the forefront. So social media plays a very important role to get easy information out like this. Ani coming back to the point, hamle jun consent and sexual violence ko kura garcham ni, a lot of the times hamle aba rape ko kura Nepali samajma kura garda he probably couldn't keep it in his pants bhanne kura haina. But rape is not a discussion, is not a crime, and the discussion around this crime is not about being unable to control your sexual urges. It's about being entitled and thinking that you have power over this certain person and to do what you want with it, you know. And very interestingly, a lot of the times people think that you have this right over a person, which is the definition of being entitled over someone, you know. You have this right over a person when you are dating them, when you are when you know them, when you are married to them. And this actually comes from a very long line of how rape laws actually came about, okay? Rape laws, like, if we go back in time and look at, the first codified laws of whichever country, paila herda chai ni, when a woman was raped, the compensation was given either to the father or to the husband. Why? Because a woman was seen as property belonging to either the father or the husband. And once your property is devalued, then you pay a certain amount compensation, you know. And because of that understanding, in so many countries, including India, marital rape is not criminalized because women are seen as property of men. And what can you do to personal property? You can do anything you want to personal property, right? And that is a sort of entitlement which is legitimized by the law. Similarly, in Nepal, marital rape ko lagi chani 5 years matra punishment cha, compared to non-marital rape, which is higher, you know. And that itself is a sort of legitimate codification from the law, saying that if you are married to someone, then there is something that you have power over that person. And similarly, I had written about intimate partner violence a while back. We're seeing with this new generation, we're seeing a lot of people enter into intimate partner relationships. And there is absolutely no law in Nepal to deal with intimate partner violence, to deal with whether physical violence or sexual violence. And when there is no law to tell you that that is wrong, you're sort of telling yourself that, you know what, if I'm intimate with a person, then that means I have right, that consent is no longer a factor that needs to be sort of talked about, as if dating someone is itself consent.
Yeah.
And that's why when we look at rape stats also, 90% of rape is actually committed by someone you know.
Someone you know. It's not a
Dark.
It's not a stranger hiding behind a bush.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that is, in fact, this is a whole nother conversation, but that narrative is actually used to restrict women's mobility. So that itself is another conversation.
Yeah.
But coming back to toxic masculinity, I think it plays to such an important pillar of what it means for masculinity to be toxic in a person. Not saying all masculine characters are toxic, but these three pillars do sort of play to your toxic qualities. And I think, like you said, it is so interlinked. The fact that your entitlement, violence ko kura garau na, rape bhanda pani violence ko kura garda, I was reading an article. When a man is angry, does he go hit his boss? Does he go hit his father? Or does he go hit his wife and children? If he is an abusive person. Because there's one, a hierarchy that is at play. And second, a sort of sense of entitlement that you have rights over your wife and children, that you can do whatever you want against them. And I think that's something that we really need to work on with men. We can't be screaming for women's rights and equality 24/7 without ensuring that men are part of this conversation and dealing with the issues. For example, domestic violence is such a big problem in Nepal. But why are we not dealing with the root cause? We're seeing domestic stats as obviously a lot of men as the perpetrators. Why are we not dealing with that? Why are we dealing with the survivors? Why are we not dealing with the perpetrators? And I think that also goes to our criminal justice system of how sort of it needs to be reformed to look at it from a reformative approach. How are you reforming a criminal? How are you ensuring that they do not commit the crime again? And I think it really does play to the toxic masculinity and the three pillars that we did talk about.
I wrote a lot of things while you were talking, Aina. While you were talking about how these laws were written, you used the term "was raped," Nina, and was raped, and then like when a woman is raped, when a woman was
not when
raped,
a man rapes,
and like
my mistake.
no, I was trying less to point out the mistake, but trying to say more about like how that terminology, it comes from like. Almost, it takes the blame away from the man.
That's true.
I know, and I think while teaching these things, while talking about it, while writing laws, this terminology needs to change. Okay?
Definitely.
The person who's raped is a victim, yes, but you should also put the responsibility
on the man, of course.
Yeah, on the person who actually committed the crime. My interesting like with you, and another thing I wanted to talk about was you talked a lot about laws, probably because you're a lawyer. Malai चाहिँ यो कुरा like domestic violence and rape, sexual assault, consentहरूको बारेमा कुरा गर्दा I come from this approach, probably being a like person from a psychology background. I think about educating the people and like changing the way they think first rather than laws. Yo men ko entitlement ko barema kura garda, I really think we need to talk more about how jab entitled huncha, they feel like you said, they own this thing, but they feel like they deserve certain things also. Okay, and where I'm trying to go with this is relationships. When you're denied some kind of physical affection that you think you deserve, you express anger over it. Okay? Like you go to get physical with your girlfriend or wife, and if she says not today, I'm not feeling like it, okay? And then you feel like this is, I deserve this, like this is my right, just to feel I think that changes with like remodeling the way you think. Okay? I think त्यहाँ जानुपर्छ के, अनि त्यहाँ जाने कसरी, it all needs to be part of this education of लाइक स्कुल कलेजमा पढ्ने भनेको त के अरे बुकिश नलेजहरू मात्र होइन नि होइन you also study and you learn how to grow up and be a human being. I think school level, college level mai जानुपर्छ कि हामीले
Definitely, I
सिकाउन.
think there needs to be a top down bottom approach
Yeah.
more than just top bottom approach, because
Yeah.
right now what is happening, and I agree, a lot of the times lawyers and education sector, they don't work together, you know, a lot of the times. For example, of a law school now we learn all this, but policymakers, you make a policy, but how is it being trickled down? Like you said, is it being trickled down and being informative to people who are at the ground? Even let's say Kathmandukai school students haru, like, is this conversation going there? Bhanne कुरा आउँछ. But I do also think that once a law is set, a law which, for example, marital rape ko kura bhanau na, it took a long time for that law to come to Nepal, you know, irrespective of it still being not equal to non-marital rape ko case. But once a law is set, I think that conversation can also flow from there, especially now that I mentioned, you know, there are pages which inform you about all these things, you know. So I think it is sort of, in the larger context, what I think is, if there is no law regarding it, and as sad as it sounds, that you need to question yourself, am I committing a crime? Bhanne कुरा के? And that is where you're thinking that, is this wrong? If there was a law on
It instills this like fear in you.
Exactly. And I'm saying that is that's this last stage of where society should be, you know, as being good human beings. But unfortunately, it has come to that extent.
Learn to be good, you know, or learn to be good so as to avoid a punishment.
Exactly.
That's, yeah, I really hope it's the other way around. Okay?
I
like
do too,
how
yeah.
we, like, you know, teach people to learn these things and be good for the sake of being good and not to fear some law and some like prison sentence and stuff like that.
But you consent ko कुरा मा चाहिँ, I think अर्को कुरा also, like for example, हामी when we were raised, we always, what is consent भनेर कसैले सोध्यो भने हामीले no means no भन्थ्यौं नि, हैन. That is problematic, because that means that until someone says no, you can do anything and everything to them.
Yeah.
You should actually be moving towards affirmative consent, which should be taught in colleges and schools. Like yes means yes, one is like you need an affirmative yes for something to happen, whether they are your partner, your you know, spouse, irrespective. And I think a lot of us were raised with that no means no, and you know, because of that, a lot of the times त्यसले गर्दा आज भर्खर एउटा रेपको acquittal भएको थियो, हैन. त्यसमा what the judge said in Nepal was, the girl did not resist and the girl did not cry when this was happening. Why is resistance seen as a form of non-consent, you know? So I think we also need to change our narrative of how we view consent.
And also, I mean, like, I don't know the details of that rape case, you know, but in the context of like, you know, marital rape and, you know, relationships, violence, sexual assault and stuff like that, you know, this habit of asking, like, you know, is it okay? Like, you know, are you in the mood or anything? Just asking for permission. Okay? And त्यो छैन, again, going back to this entitlement with like probably this rape case also without knowing any details, you know, this man felt like, you know, I'm a man, I have the right or I deserve to have my desires fulfilled. That's it. And I mean, I agree with you, this law fear signs, humans are terrible beings. But I also, this optimism in me also really hopes that, you know, it can work.
I think it can work. I think it can work, but it requires a whole generation of a whole generation being taught something like this, you know? Because we weren't taught this. No one taught us what consent was when we were young.
Yeah. Thank God. Like, I feel thankful that I went to America where, like, you know, these things, as soon as like orientation may, like, you know, सब स्टुडेन्ट्सहरूसँग हुन्थ्यो कि होइन यस्तो कुराहरू. नेपालमा नेभर हर्ड अफ इट कि. अनि मैले एउटा like school, college, well 11 12 पनि college हैन मैले I was talking to certain people 11 12 पढाउनेहरूलाई कि अनि I told them कि I really think especially your school college को स्टुडेन्ट्सहरू your break लिएर बाहिर जाने trend छ, most of your students go abroad. I really think this should be part of your curriculum. And the reason I say this is because students that age watch American Pie ani
American Pie was like 15 years ago.
Well, sorry. That was when I went. Yeah, anyway, like movies
Yeah,
like
I
that.
get it. Yeah.
They watch movies like that and they think ki America and Europe and Australia, wherever, Western world is this cool and chill, where I can go to a frat party or any party, house party, and I can get laid and blah, 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 But I really think your students need to learn that, just as a warning and stuff like that, and I really hope more schools and colleges adopt that.
I think definitely it should be like sex ed छैन हैन
sex ed छैन नेपालमा त किन छैन lord knows why
नेपालमा sex ed छैन sexual education छैन where are the people getting information from where are the people getting information about contraceptives about safe sex about consent हैन and this is something which I feel education sector prepares you for everything once, for life. Education is supposed to be preparing you for life. Is it preparing us for life?
No. It's preparing us for a classroom, for a job.
Yeah.
It's not preparing us for...
to become social beings.
Exactly. It's not teaching us anything about social relationships and how to maintain social relationships. How, like, for example, I'm like media ले सिकाउँछ कि you go to a pub, you can so easily talk to a person, I know, like like approach a girl and then offer her a drink and like that again
where have you learned that?
Yeah,
you've learned it from movies.
Yeah, and like does it actually work? Have you ever tried it? Like I've never tried it. Have you ever tried it? Like who tries that
I
stuff?
don't know.
Media like kiki sikaउँछ बरु school, colleges that is supposed to mold you as a human for the real world. I mean, isn't this
real
part
world.
of the real world?
Exactly.
Like how to be social भनेर म यो जस्ट मिडियाको बारेमा हल्का एउटा कुरा गर्नु मन थियो हैन how masculinity is portrayed in media भनेर you shared that article with me. Loved that article. I read it twice actually, today once and Austin last week when we were scheduled to meet. I read it once again. Chinese men in media are seen as not manly enough. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I think it's when I read that article, what I found interesting is I was correlating it to Hamro society, of Nepali society, because I don't know, once I've come back to Nepal, I feel like a lot of the things that you read and question, you sort of, attach it to here. When men are seen as showing alikati pani feminine qualities, media ma nazaum na, family ma herum na, for example, when a child is crying, के भन्छ हाम्रो पेरेन्ट्सले केटी जस्तो नरौ न हैन not running properly केटी जस्तो कसरी दौड्या त्यो हैन अलिकति केटा जस्तो गरेर दौड केटा त रुदैन are men को any quality which is not feminine हैन first I don't know where at what point we started characterizing qualities as
feminine
and masculine that itself is a problem gendering emotions like you said and gendering qualities and unfortunately it has been gendered and we have been conditioned to be brought up with those stereotypes. But I think what happens is that the moment you sort of not just not accept the feminine qualities in men but disregard them, there is so much of mental pressure being put on men. And coming to men ko mental health, which is a conversation that I think requires an entire podcast. But definitely, I think it's so interesting because when I was doing the toxic masculinity ko poll on Nepali feminist, something that someone wrote was one of the most toxic traits I have seen in men is that they can't open up to their male friends like how women open up to their female friends. A show of emotion. And when they want to open up, it's opening up to a lot of women, a lot of partners, female partners, who are then sort of taking the whole burden the emotional burden of men, unfortunately, because even when I was in a relationship with someone, I remember him telling me that I can't open up to my guy friends like the way I'm opening up to you, and I would open up to him about certain issues. There would be certain issues I'd open up to my other friends about, and have a balanced opinion of what's going on. But what happens, what I've noticed is that men sort of have very good friendships, but that friendship has a point where you stop becoming open about your emotions and feelings, once again, because it's seen as a feminine quality. Have you ever cried in front of one of your guy friends?
Yeah, actually, while he was sleeping, I ran into his room and cried.
Was he consoling you?
Yeah, he was very good. I have no reservations with my crying and being emotional eta uta bhanera, I touch wood, I hope I don't change, but I'm very happy that I'm an emotional man.
Yeah, and that's something I think I hope your viewers watch and someone understand that it's okay to be emotional, and to be open to your friends being emotional to you also, okay, And I was actually reading about this, about how toxic masculinity go, like we talked about the anti-femininity pillar that's there about your emotions and not showing sorrow, not showing pain. That all ties up to your mental health deteriorating, Firstly, when we look at the statistics of suicide, नेपालमै मैले 2018 र 19 को suicide rates हेरेको थिएँ. Men को statistics 72 men 2018 to 19 को 1 year मा 50 women. And what we're also seeing is that men are definitely not opening up about their emotions, not seeking mental health, support. Mental health support will definitely about. There are different other issues of access in terms of monetary access and stuff like that, and urban access. That we are seeing even in urban areas, men not approaching mental health counselors as much as women.
No, I completely agree.
And it is not just suicide rate, but even life expectancy of men is actually lower than women across the world because of two reasons. And WHO actually published this a while back. One was the risk-taking behavior that a real man does, takes risks, monetary or otherwise, violent actions like road rage, taking risks with your motor vehicle, taking risks with your life, violent or otherwise, seen more in men. And the second is not having emotional support, family, peer, or even mental health counselors. And stress is, as a psychology student, I'm sure, I studied psychology for 2 years, very basic psychology. Stress actually causes heart attack.
Yeah.
It actually causes heart attack. There is proven science behind that, right? Ani, when you're looking at men having risk-taking behavior without any emotional support or the ability to seek emotional support, your life expectancy itself is decreased. And that is so sad. That these are things that are attached to what is being a man in our society, literally costing your life. And no one questions that, because by the end of the day, you want to be remembered as a real man.
Oh, that you brought up a lot of interesting points. यो मैले जब त्यो एउटा गुड हेल्थमा पडकास्ट गरेको थिएँ कि होइन, अनि त्यसपछि यो पडकास्टहरू गर्दा मैले साइकोलोजी पढाउँदा पनि होइन, अब हल्का टर्म चाहिँ मैले कोइन गर्न थालेँ, साइकोलोजिस्ट or साइकोलोजी पर्सन भनेर होइन. Most people that reach out to me for help, asking if I'm a counselor, there have been a lot of people that have asked me if I'm a counselor, if I offer counseling sessions. Majority have been female. One has been, majority, all except one have been female. Okay, and is it because more females watch those videos compared to men? I don't know. I don't know the reason behind that, but there is a correlation there. It might not be. We shouldn't reach any conclusions. It was just surprising. I just remembered that most people approaching me for any kind of help have all been females. Men are the one man also that approached me ekdam privately, पछि आएर, sir, is it okay if I talk to you यसरी, hope this doesn't get to anyone, त्यसरी भनेर के, very scared of seeking help. And I Susan has never been in a class with me, but every time I teach ni, I introduce like psychology पढेको मैले यताउता भनेर first class में मेरो introduction में I mentioned कि I've visited a therapist multiple times. There's no shame in admitting that. There's no shame in visiting a counselor. You don't need to have mental health problems for that. You might just need to...
In fact, a counselor doesn't even diagnose mental health problems.
Yeah, they listen to you.
Yeah.
They ask the right questions so that you yourself offer answers. Okay?
Yeah. They're not there to dictate answers.
Exactly. And so, there's no harm in admitting that you are weak sometimes.
Yeah.
There's no harm in expressing vulnerability. Okay?
Yeah.
But like you rightly said, men are taught to closet it. And the one female who's your girlfriend or your wife like saying after purai emotional baggage,
free therapist,
yeah. But like women aren't your girlfriend. Your wife isn't there to fix your emotional problems, isn't there to like fix you. I know, like it should just come out naturally. Okay? Not like एउटा मान्छेमा चाहिँ anger pour गर्ने कि त तिमीसँग मात्र भन्न सक्छु मेरो अरू साथीहरुसँग भन्न सक्दिन रे. Why? Like then are they really your friends? Are they the people you should be hanging out with? If you don't even feel comfortable talking to them. This we talked about in our episode with like minimalism in relationships, social relationships. If you can't go to your friends and open up and be vulnerable with them, maybe they're not the right friends. Maybe they're not the right people for you. Maybe you need to find
a separate group.
A separate group of friends, male or female, that you can open up with. Okay? That's actually, I think, a really good way to tie it all up. We talked about toxic masculinity a lot, but we also talked about feminism. We talked about rape, consent, sexual assault. I really wanted to focus a lot on that. I'm really glad we got to talk about that. And I really hope you enjoyed being here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Is there
thank you so much for having me. I think this is a topic which really needs to get out, and younger audience especially, because toxic masculinity को शब्द लिने बित्तिकै फेमिनिजम को शब्द लिने बित्तिकै मान्छेहरु अलिकति पछाडी हट्छ के हैन
यो त अलिकति लाइक मान्छेसँग कुरा नगर्दा
ठीक होला हैन यो त ट्याउ ट्याउ मात्रै गरेर बस्छ सुन्नु छैन भन्नेहरु कुरा जस्तो आउँछ. But I think podcasts and vlogcasts, is that the word? I don't know.
Video podcast?
Video podcast is like, it's a great way for people to sit in their private space and reflect. Okay? And I hope people who do watch today really are able to reflect, because I've learned a lot of things from you also today. And
as have I from you.
And I hope this really goes out, and the message of toxic masculinity being something which is not inherent in a man. Toxic masculinity, like all other traits, can be unlearned. But it really depends on you how you take the initiative लिएको छ कि छैन. Because मैले beginning मा भनेको जस्तै toxic masculinity is definitely hurting एउटा individual, but it is also hurting everyone around you. And for the sake of your own personal growth, for the sake of your relationships as a person, as a social being, I think it's important for all of us to unlearn traits of toxic masculinity. Things even women can have, glorifying toxic masculine traits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's something we didn't even get to actually. Women glorifying those uber masculine traits, and to impress those women, men hype up those things, those qualities in them, because they think to be desirable, मलाई केटीहरुले मन पराउनको लागि चाहिँ म यस्तो हुनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा. And I really hope people find value in this episode. There's so much I want to talk about, especially with regards to consent and sexual assault and all. Maybe another episode नै गर्नु पर्न सक्छ हैन. But I really hope people find value in this, and people, reflect, just introspect and evaluate. Like, are some of the traits that I have I learned it from certain like toxic like toxic masculine people and stuff like that, you know. I think it's really important for you to introspect. And another thing I really hope people do is with your brothers, with your parents, with your children, try not to teach them such toxic masculine traits. Just teach them to be human. Masculine, feminine. I mean, who gets to decide what is a masculine
Exactly.
trait and feminine trait? It's so fuck. First time I said that. Second time I said that. So yeah, it's so stupid deciding what is a masculine and feminine trait. So yeah, I really hope people find value in this. To end it, this bookshelf thing, it's a collection, my book collection,
Oh, wow.
most of which I've read. Some stopped reading midway because it's not where I wanted to go. So with every guest, I ask them to just choose a book, and once you finish it, minimize it by sharing it with someone.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
this whole concept is about minimalism. So yeah, you can push the mic back. And thank you so much, Jesselina, for being
Thank you
here.
so much, Sandeep. Let me see. I've heard a lot about Crime and Punishment, but it seems like a very big.
good book. It's
Yeah.
tough book. That's amazing.
Yeah.